for this. Hi, everyone. This is the biweekly dPID working group call for Tuesday, February 13th, 2024. A bunch of people aren't able to make it today due to personal conflicts, but I think that's actually work out well as this is a more focused working group on the benefits of institutional adoption or the dPID's statement of benefits. So that's going to be a huge part of what we're going over today. And this is intended to be more of a working call. Correct me if I'm wrong about that one, Andre.
Yes, it would be a working call. I don't know if Georgos will be able to connect, but anyhow, we have the letter and the document from him about the motivation and the ideation on the benefits. So
Would
we
you mind
can,
sharing your screen with more information?
yes, I am preparing to share the screen right now. Let me do. So it looks like that.
Okay.
It's just bullet points basing on which we can write. I had no time to transfer them to another document, but I can copy them uh, to our agenda, and then we can proceed. What
Yeah,
do
I
you
like the
think?
bullet points.
Okay, so let me. It's like a roadmap, so I can copy them to our agenda. It's not this. Yep, here it is. No.
Apparently, we will get a visit in about 15 minutes from Lars Eklund, my colleague who wanted us to do the presentation.
Yes.
So he will be able to join, it seems. So that's good.
Yes. And he was connected some just seconds before, but I don't see him right now. Okay, so we have them copied, and we can proceed with this. Yeah, and let's jump to the first topic in the agenda. So it is this agreement on establishing constant time biweekly meetings. So does it work for everyone, or should we place again the doodle poll? What do you think?
I think this time works, but then again, I'm here, and the people who doesn't have the ability to be on Tuesdays, they won't be here to say it. So
Oh, Chris is connecting.
I don't know. Maybe have you gotten a lot of answers that said not this time?
No, we just had on a doodle, we had just 3 or 4 answers.
Okay, that's very low.
Yeah. Okay, so what do you think that for the next meeting, it's better to create a doodle poll again? So
I don't know.
Eric, we cannot hear you.
I think this time is fine. If people want to change time, they can do so in the future.
Okay, so for me, it works almost at any time. Okay. Okay. So if everyone agree, let's see that it is agreed. Okay, let's wait a bit for Eric to reconnect.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, yes, we can.
Yeah, I was going to say this time works for me as well.
Okay, so we can mark this as agreed. Yeah, so let's go for the next point. It's initial presentation template. And what do you think about the creation of it? Is it a good idea?
So a presentation template for whom?
Just let's say the initial template about what should be in any presentation we do.
So whenever you say template, this is as much about copy and creating standardized documentation for people to copy paste.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, I think that's great. I was
okay,
asked one together the other day for a more technical audience that's just a one-pager slide. Let me,
exactly.
yeah,
Exactly, because very soon we will start receiving the acceptance notification. I guess it will be at least one or two, and it will be great to have a presentation template.
well, it's not exactly a great template. It's a fairly plain black and white slide, but if
Yeah,
nothing else,
exactly. Yeah,
context.
exactly. But we could also add some logos and something just to copy paste.
Yeah, and within that, I can actually work on getting us a repository of logos and images and things like that.
Yeah, it sounds really good.
So Andre, I put the link in the document. Would you mind just opening
Yes,
that and seeing if this is what you had in mind?
yes, yes. We see. So it is good. Logo image repository. Yes, it's great to have. It's great to have.
Um, can you open or is that yeah, the Google Docs link that's there?
Yes,
Is this what you had in mind?
yes, exactly, exactly. And also maybe the logo somewhere just
Yeah, I can
to
pull it open.
identify what we are presenting.
Cool. Yeah, I can do that.
Is the logo the one you have in your background?
Yes, it is. Yeah, and I think I've also shared the background for people who want to get really into it. But let me,
Yeah, while you are doing, may I also indicate that Eucomia's paper is also submitted.
awesome.
Yeah, so here we are. It is Eucomia's.
Speaking
Submit.
about data paper submissions, I found a very interesting and on-point article this weekend about using IPFS as a PID system. I think I shared it with Eric. I think it should be standard part of our references going forward.
Can you please share the link on the chat? Because maybe it was
Yes,
already, yeah, because
one
it's,
moment.
yeah, maybe it was already used.
Andre, I actually found it from one of the papers that you wrote, so we have been using it, but it does bring up the point of the bibliography. So we do have that Mattermost channel around a dPID bibliography creation. And I think that this is one of the pieces of content that either I have or need to put in there.
Yeah, and after more or less, I will have less burden with some other tasks. I probably sort out the sources we have in the current bibliographies of every paper we submit.
Yep.
And yeah, and we can
Yes.
use them.
I think having a shared bibliography for this project is gonna really pay back at some point. So very useful.
Yeah, I guess so. Okay, so Elcomis is the next point here. May I also show? Okay, okay, let's return to it later. So another point is RDA blog post. Oh, hello, Francis.
Hey, Francis.
Hello, nice to join you. Apologies for coming late.
That's all good. Thanks for joining.
So RDA blog post is only on its way. So it's under the pre-moderation right now. We agreed on it, so it's just we are taking the green light. I will show it.
Yes, I went through it and I thought it was very well argued, and I really like its latest one. So thank you, Eric and Ender.
Okay, okay, thank you. And also I found this this paper about the long-term preservation of the content. Also, it's a very good point for our bibliography, and it's about the lifetime of URIs. So we have now all the links in this blog post. So it is submitted for the pre-moderation. Okay, yeah, and now we can just jump to the statement of benefits. Let's go.
Cool. So, Andre, can I just say this is a very organized start to the call, and thank you.
Good. So I think we could align now with the things Georgos sent to us. What do you think?
I think that's a great idea. Let me copy paste that information into the doc. So I'll put it at
Yes, could you please do it?
Yep, already done.
Because here it's only the paragraph, the last paragraph for that information. Let me copy paste everything.
And Andre, maybe before we go into actually working on this document, it's good to reset context, since I think it's been about 2 weeks since the last call.
Yeah, so the context is we need some document like a white paper, but a bit more detailed about the exact benefits the institutions at first the bigger institutions could obtain deploying and using dPIDs. So it's like again like a white paper, but more detailed and focused on the higher management. So they are the people who will decide why they should have interest in dPID and using dPIDs, and to dedicate money on them. Yes, Francis?
Should we also consider the broader benefits, not just to institutions, but also to science generally?
Yes,
To-
exactly. Exactly.
To maybe you have it here. I didn't read it, but also to science and to society at large as well.
Yes.
Especially in this age where we are, let's say, very concerned about the value of science on the one hand, but also about communications and how science is communicated, and yeah, reliable information versus misinformation or disinformation. So here I think there's an important argument to be made also about, let's say, the reliability and provenance and things like that too.
Absolutely. I've been hearing a lot of conversation around the usage of this technology and kind of granular identification as a means of providing provenance in a world of AI. That seems like a very relevant point surrounding this.
It might also touch on what you will know better than me, but it might also touch on the um, the problematic, let's say, of explainability
Yes.
and limited explainability and how to deal with that. Because I do think we have to be able to find some ways to deal with our black boxes and the limitations that that we impose on ourselves, let's say, through the use of AI. So, yeah.
Well, and
About
an interesting question about tone for this document. How do we want to think about wording this information? Is it more, here's what this can do for the world? Is it, here's the problems that the world faces and what it can do? How would you go about that, Francis?
Well, I think it's a question of audience in the first place. So I think you are trying to direct yourselves towards institutional leaders. The institutional leaders, they want to solve problems, but like the rest of us in life, we also are concerned about how we're seen and what's important. So Jonas wants to say something. He'll say something more sensible. Sorry.
No, just before I forget it, it's also very important if we actually want to cooperate on stuff that we have the same document being referenced in the same way. So I think this also fits in very well with cooperation and data visitation and stuff like that that happens all around the world, which is not very easy to do at the moment. On the topic of the audience, I think that we should make it readable for people who know English, but maybe not all the abbreviations. There are a lot of abbreviations in this, as it is. What do you think about that?
You mean now?
Yeah, in both this and the previous document, there's, I mean, the only
Yes.
one that we actually explain is dPID, which is, I mean, yeah, that's what this is about. But I'm not sure that every institutional leader or researcher know what a DOI is.
The researchers, well, from my experience, I could say that here most of the researchers know. Or
Most,
at
yes.
least, yes,
Most, I agree, but not everyone.
not everyone.
I that as well. Not every researcher, if you explain it, they're like, oh yeah, it's the string of numbers and letters that the publisher gave me, but it's not something that's top of mind in the same way that it is to us.
Yes,
But that being
exactly.
said, it actually is more recognizable as DOI than digital object identifier. But I agree with your point on acronyms, and that was one of the points that Lynn made earlier in some of our writings. We need to do our best to limit that and a lot of the technical jargon as well, which is
Yes.
hard because I love the technical jargon, but it does need to come down.
Yeah, and also I think after
Yeah, and
after
also I think, can you hear me, by the way?
Yeah, we
Yes.
can.
Yes, yes, please go ahead.
Can you hear me? Oh, nice. Yeah, yeah. So it's saying we have to be mindful of conceptual confusions, right? So dPID is a PID technology. So it's closer to the handle system than it is to DOI. DOI is an instance of the handle system with a trademarked persistent identifier schema with registration agencies, right? So we are not like we are dPID is a PID technology. So I think it's just worth to be careful around confusions here as we
Yeah,
introduced the project.
I agree. But after the last feedback I received from my authorities at Elettra, I could say that actually the managers don't care. They mostly care
Okay.
about, yes, they mostly care about the let's say the explanation itself and how we would explain about why we should dedicate the resources on this technology.
Yes. 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 I think
I cannot hear you, Chris.
You're breaking up on us. Well, that's okay.
I think we lost him.
Yeah, I think he's gone. It
Yeah.
was frustrating because he was making a good point, or his points prior were good. But
I think there's information. Sorry.
Okay, Chris can hear us, so we can proceed a bit while he is out of the outcoming channel.
We can still read his chat messages, I guess.
Yes. So he just said that he can hear us.
Okay. So maybe it would be good. I love the way that Yorgos has structured this as bullet points, and I think a couple other folks have mentioned that they like the way that this has been structured. Maybe we can go and add additional bullet points to this from some of the prior conversations.
Yes, yes, and afterwards, when we will collect these bullet points, I think we could formulate a paragraph about this. The Google Doc. Okay. Yeah, just a sec.
I got it, Andre. Oh,
Ah.
yeah. Okay, so 4 points. Cheaper, technically superior, very enthusiastic community, working prototype.
Yes, and also I would expect we should add here the bullet point about the deployment. So we have more or less, we have at least the deployment point list, and there is an ongoing pipeline. Because it is important. It's what everyone will ask about how to do.
So you're saying as a different section as a whole is just, it's easy for your IT department to implement this?
Yes, I think here.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, easy to implement seems like a really good point.
Yeah, and also deployment pipeline.
What do you mean by that?
Oh, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Something like as we already discussed with Eric, something like Debian packages.
Yeah, so
So,
this is the basis of the NGI grant that we wrote, is just packaging an IPFS node and a ceramic node so that IT departments can very easily deploy and support dPID and know the information that should be stored.
Sure, but is that what we ask of them?
is
We asked them
to,
to try it out. Isn't that the whole point?
yeah.
I
So is the question trying out dPIDs or supporting the system? Is that the confusion?
the confusion is that it's under the label of what we ask from the IT department.
Exactly.
Oh, gotcha. Oh, okay. It's the heading here. So perhaps we put this up here as kind of one of the benefits, and then what we're asking is endorsement, so sharing in use cases. So perhaps we call this deployment of the stack or support the network.
Yeah, but yeah, support the network.
Does that make more sense?
Yes,
Yes.
exactly. It does.
Okay. Another thing that I would love to talk about here, because I've found talking to different IT departments, the question is always about end users, about researchers themselves. Okay, this is great technology, but this feels like technology for the sake of technology. Why do my researchers care? So I would love to put the idea of machine actionable journals on here as something more tangible for end users as a way to support. Does that make
Yeah,
sense?
yes, it sounds great. It sounds great.
Could you say something more about that, Eric? Machine actionable journals.
Yeah, so this is a concept that we started coming up with um, Chris Erdman, and let me see if I can actually find this. Machine actionable journal ideation. Here we go. So I'll put the link in here, both in the meeting chat and in the dPID statement of benefits. The idea being PID systems are ultimately useful in, moving information through the distributed knowledge management system of academia. But the front end that a user would actually care about is any given journal interface. So DSI nodes is, I think, the first kind of test interface on this open knowledge repository. And the easiest way, not only for IT departments to help this, but for researchers themselves as well, is by spinning up a journal. So I think we've got the nodes interface and are working on a community management one as well. And I can put the link to a quick view of that. But the idea being this journal showcases the benefits of dPID. So everything that you can do with granular machine readability, where it's actually something that a researcher can interact with on a day-to-day basis.
Yes.
So let's see if I can find the link to the community curation interface as well.
And may I also add here the keyword for the photon and neutron community? It is logbook.
But
Because
Francis, that answer your question?
Yeah, it helps a lot. I'm wondering from an institutional perspective, on the one hand, I could see they would like the granularity because it gives them more insight into the research that's going on around within their institution, and it's the data probably better able to follow that and also compare it to other institutions. But I'm wondering if you're an institutional manager, if you would be concerned about stepping into this system if it's not already widely deployed. If you're going to have a fantastic granular system within your institution, but nobody else is using it, then you might feel there's limited value to it.
But it will still be compatible with other systems, as I understood it.
Mm-hmm.
So that you having the granularity won't necessarily make it any less usable if you are encountering data that doesn't have that. Am I wrong?
No, thank you for saying that too. I wasn't aware of it, or I didn't think about it. Probably the former, but
I might do.
suppose I'm the research manager here at the University of Leuven, and in Leuven we go for this high granularity, but nobody else is doing it. Liège isn't doing it. Ghent isn't doing it. Antwerp isn't doing it. Leiden isn't doing it. Cologne isn't doing it. So why should I care if I do it?
Because it's beneficial in and of itself, I guess.
No, it's a good question.
Yes, it's a good question, and
Nations are mandating it, why do it?
yeah, but here we have
I think there must be some sort of benefit in and of itself. Otherwise, you will get very few early adopters.
Well, and this is a part of what I've been trying to work on recently, is figuring out what that statement of benefits is. And ultimately, some of the better answers that I've been able to come up with are as follows. So for starters, a persistent awards and badging systems. So it can tie an institution to the researchers that they work with more closely. Where if you want to encourage open science practices, the idea that you can persistently append an award directly to the encapsulation around their manuscript means that, you know, you can say on the scientific record, this researcher did an amazing job, and we appreciate the openness, the reproducibility, the fairness, whatever it is, of their work. And we actually have, or are in the process of making said badging system. Then you've got some of the more standardized and generic research data management angles. So by sharing your data, you get 25% more citations. There's the altruistic take on it of, you know, make reproducibility easy for your researchers by using workflow tooling specifically designed for it. There are a couple other things. It's also an easy management interface for institutional journals or any institutional publishing, where you can take what would normally be considered, you know, it's a less well-funded avenue to publication, and make that easy based on your institution's backend servers, and actually elevate that with code and data past some of what would be more traditional publication routes. So let me see if I can find additional documentation on the benefits itself. I've had to write this up a couple times over, but I don't know that I've formally documented it anywhere, which I need to do. But I just threw a whole bunch of stuff out there, and the tricky part is it tends to, I guess, it's a balancing act between DeSci nodes as an interface and a system for journals, which is not what this working group is about. This working group is about dPID, and then dPID as an open source technology. So I want to be careful in balancing that with the understanding that any end user benefits do come from interactions and interfaces. So whole long rambling rant, does anyone have immediate thoughts?
and also
Sorry.
just an idea that I had right now, that if we will say that our method of sharing the metadata is more fair compliant with than some others, it could be also the feature. Because once we are declaring that dPID is compatible with the definition of fair data objects, it could be a feature, because it's about the data management plans and data policies. For example, in the photon and neutron community, everyone should adopt them. And for example, when at Elettra the DOI is minted, the DMP is also generated for every data set we publish.
So as a separate point, once again, it's for DeSci nodes, and I don't want to conflate nodes with dPID, but a lot of this information is actually on the dsci.com website. I just posted the link in chat. Andre, would you mind opening that? And maybe we can take a look.
Yes. So there are a lot of information, a lot of data about the supporting. And also this is our actually a killer feature about the reverse lookup.
Yeah, so this is a question. How much, what is the best way to put this in front of institutions? Is it via the technology angle, or is it via the platform angle? Because it's and I understand both don't are not necessarily in tension with each other, right? Because as Eric rightly pointed out, to benefit, you need to have the user interfaces.
Yes, and also as we received a letter from Heike, it was about the more platform than or provider than the technology itself.
Yeah, I can definitely see that from an end user perspective. What I've been considering with Eric and the team is having almost like a separate line of products for institutional deployment where we delineate both. So we provide the type of features that these institutional entities are looking for, so that they can interact with the stack independently of the branded design notes platform.
Or Jonas, what do you want to say?
Yeah, I have somewhat of a different angle, and that is aiming at being very easy for researchers to use, because this would, as far as I see it, enable people to enter their metadata once and then keep it adjacent to their data along the entire process. And for instance, in my field of science, you generate a lot of data, you do rehashes, and you do a lot of strange things. And in the end, you want to publish it, and you have no idea what came from where and stuff like that. So this would make it really, really easy to keep track of that, and you only have to enter it once for each data set with all the metadata, and this is a derivative of this data set, and all of that would be already there. So when you want to publish, you can just format it. You could probably have a script pulling the correct stuff using dPIDs to make it publishable for the journal who wants a specific format.
That is
Like
Yeah,
adapters.
I think that's
we're in the
a
process of
strong
building
point.
back in for that. Yes.
And we also have now API integration, meaning that you can, if you're truly, deep nerd, you can actually build these dPIDs and these research objects using the command line right now.
Yeah, so Lars, do you have something to present today?
No, not today.
Okay.
But you want to present this at a later
Yes.
stage?
Yes.
Um,
What we want to do is we want to present this to Uppsala University, so that hopefully making them adopters of this of the dPIDs, basically, as one of the larger institutions in Sweden. That would help a lot in sort of pushing it here from an institutional point of view. So I think, so that's our goal. And the reason that we want to present it now is that Uppsala University is going into a phase of choosing how it's going to handle metadata and research data in general. We have just recently formally adopted a research data office, so to speak. It just got announced today that the group that is doing that has a boss, which is good. So it's a perfect time for us to introduce these kind of concepts to Uppsala at the moment. So that's why I want me and Jonas, we are colleagues and works together. But I want us to present the dPID system for them in about 2 weeks, because next week we have holidays here, school holidays here for most people. So most workplaces kind of don't do anything important that week. So that was what we were doing. And I wanted to append to Jonas' idea here also that with the provenance that you get is actually important to push, that you can actually see what has happened to a system, to a set of data throughout, because this allows for that, which normal PIDs don't. They don't show the change that is happening. So the dynamics is also something that is, I think, important in this. It's persistent but dynamic, which I think is really interesting.
It's versioned, at least.
Anything else, presenting it as a workflow tool.
Francis has his hands up.
Yeah, thank you. Firstly, I do want to apologize to Jonas because I think I was a bit short, but I think you're right. And I think, Jonas, you're right about looking at the, I'm not sure how to say it, but intrinsic value, having a value in and of itself, or having a value within that specific application, even if it's not seen beyond, let's say, the research project or even the research institution, still has a value. I think that's what we need to focus on too. I would suggest is focusing on the value. I think open science is a wonderful rhetorical tool, but I don't think that's what people really care about. I think people care about value. They care about the money too. A research manager, his first job is to know how much money is coming in and how much is going out and how much do I have left over to do other things with. And I hear that that's constantly people are thinking about the money, constantly. They're also thinking about how, if you have a research or a data management office in Uppsala, if it's not the case before they name the director, it is the case now after they name the director. The director responsibility is to derive value from the research. And that's going to be monetary value too. Most of our universities today are industries. They're about generating money, as much money as they can, because they've been pushed in that direction, and that's where they are. So I think that we should use the rhetoric of open research, open data, open science, all wonderful stuff, but there's no reality to that that's ever going to be there, because we live in economies, I think. One more thing to say. Eric and I had a bit of an experience yesterday in a working group that we participate in, where people push back against what they call technology first. And it was hardly technology first. It was policy first. It was policy all over the place, and then us trying to creep in with some small sentences on technology, and all of a sudden, oh, we have to push back. And and I think what the challenge is here is that people are very nervous to move from policy to technology. So people are wonderful to talk about open science, open publications, publishing data and everything, all this kinds of stuff. But the moment they have to move into a technology, they feel very, very nervous about it, because they feel like they're going to lose control to the technology. So a couple of things I want to say. One of the things that needs to happen is, I think we need to describe the problem that we're solving and how this solves the problem. The other thing is probably need a glossary of terms. Painful and as impossible that is, it's worth doing it because at least we will feel comfortable with the terminology that we use. And we won't, I think that's really helpful. And then, yeah, so I think the transition from policy to technology, which is the transition I want to make, because I don't think that we can realize the policy without the technology, is really important. But we have to do it like I think what Lars is saying, and I guess Jonas as well. We need some use cases that demonstrate value there. One more thing. What we have to be careful of is dPIDs are going to take over anyway. So regardless of whether or not we do it, they will take over. If that's not the case, we're probably pursuing the wrong path. So dPIDs, anything that's going to happen in life will happen anyway normally, regardless of anything we do about it. So we only want to be on the right train. So we really have to be careful that dPIDs are the future, regardless of this working group or any other working group out there, that dPIDs are somehow going to manifest themselves anyway, because they solve the problem and they are the next step in solving the problems that we need. If we're convinced of that, then the rest is easy. Yeah.
And I'll put in there decentralized identifiers. I do have a level of conviction around that being the future. So yeah, okay, sorry, Zoom gave me a notice. I agree with that entirely and wanted to put out a way that I've started to think around communicating end user value recently. That's come from a lot of navigations within the Dutch university network. I've found 3 general types of people who I have to communicate to. And it, broadly speaking, has been split up into logos, ethos, and pathos, with the most prominent being ethos. So it's the idea of end user value. What is the practical? What do people actually get out of it? There's a small subset of people who care about the technology, kind of the logos behind it. And, you know, what cool things can this do? Tech for the sake of tech. And then pathos being open science, meta science, replication crisis, things along those lines. And in recent writing and communication, I've started trying to do like a 60-20-20 split between the 3 of those, with the focus being on what it actually provides to the users, when the understanding that rhetoric around open science, while it's important to have in there, is only going to take someone so far. Same with interesting technology. So perhaps that's just throwing it out there in case others find that useful.
Thanks. That was a really good idea there to try to split it that way. I think you're onto the right track, both in respect to where you can actually utilize the bigger pictures, but also in as was Francis also said earlier, that organizations, the institutions out there, they're mainly interested in what value for the scientists does this bring. And the scientists are interested in how does this make my research life easier? Because they want to do research. They don't want to do, to be honest, most researchers, they don't want to do publications. They don't want to do, they just want to research. And anything that makes that process easier is going to be something that everyone is going to jump on.
And they want recognition.
Yeah, they want recognition for that science that they do, but they exactly. But they don't want to do all the administrative stuff around. The less of that they can do, the most of them will be more happy. which is why that point that Jonas made, that the write it once, use it many times, is very important, because that allows them to spread it out, spread the recognition out without having to redo it all the time. So I think that's very important to keep in mind, to keep those two groups in mind when you talk to people. And I think that's exactly what that 60-20-20 does. It looks at that particular point.
Slava?
Yes. Hi, everyone. I'm sorry I'm being late, and I will rewatch what was discussed. But what I wanted to say about discussion, I don't believe in direct success of decentralization, to be honest. I'm Ukrainian, and I live in Netherlands for quite some time, and I'm working with European universities in different projects. And it's quite tough if you want to introduce something innovative like decentralization, because everybody is afraid to lose control. So my approach is a little bit different, and I'm introducing another technology, and this technology stands on decentralization. So, for example, now I'm building AI that allows to do translation of control vocabularies automatically. So all this stuff is being translated in a context. It's quite good quality at the moment. And I want to use DIDs or dPIDs to mint concepts and to track concepts. So it will be value of the control vocabularies being translated and sustainable much more higher than value of decentralization itself. This is why it will be accepted. You understand my idea? So basically,
Yes.
there's a train.
Yeah.
It's moving. It's running, and there are additional components coming into place, like decentralization. There is some artificial intelligence, machine learning. All this stuff is just basically becoming part of infrastructure in the process. And after 1 or 2 or 5 years, everybody will get used to it, and after it will be accepted by everyone in community. So this is my perspective.
Slava, I didn't understand. Sorry. So sorry. I'm very slow. Try me again.
Again?
Yeah.
I will try to explain on my use case, okay?
Yes.
So I have a couple of projects, and they're interested in in high level of interoperability. That means that we need to build semantic search for data repositories like Dataverse and some others. And in just by short words, it means that if you want to find something in Chinese or in Italian or any other language, despite of metadata will be described in, let's say, Dutch, you should be able to do that. And there is nothing like that exists at the moment. And what I'm introducing is automatic translation of control vocabularies, which we have, so created by human, but every concept from this control vocabulary described, let's say, in Dutch or only in English. And we want to add 100 languages to it. You understand from this moment? Yeah. So to make it sustainable, we need to assign to every concept something like decentralized ID, because we are talking about the same thing translated in other language. Is it clear? So we'll get like 100 properties for the same thing. And after people will start to use it and they will start to mint those concepts in their language, we basically can build a knowledge graph which could be integrated with search engine like Google. So from this moment, search engine technologies will understand multilinguality, and we will consume what the decentralized network is, all value that the decentralized network can provide for this use case.
So if I understand correctly, what you're saying is we build actually a centralized network.
Right.
But that centralized network will, let's say, evolve almost in and of itself into a decentralized network.
Right. Within time. Yes.
Right. And that goes back to, let's say, Eric's core religious belief that decentralization will dominate, even if it doesn't today. Because
it's
it's the only workable way to work across the disparities in the world. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it's going to be organized in this way. So decentralization is going to win because you know Dataverse, right? So when Dataverse was first introduced in Netherlands, it was kind of, well, system data repository developed in United States. Nobody really wanted it in Europe. And what we did, we first we applied for a project to get translations in 12 languages for 12 countries. So all people did that translation. And after we introduced control vocabulary support as a plugin to consume those translations. So multilinguality actually allowed us to get Dataverse on this position in Europe, like now. This is like prominent data repository, and in European open science context, if you are talking about data repository, probably it will be Dataverse. So I have confirmation that this approach works. So really like going from centralized repository, centralized system, we basically made it decentralized by adding customized pieces. In our case, it's translations. Interesting for all parties, right? So now it's a kind of open source community that adding translations and maintaining translations mostly in autonomous mode. In decentralization, we are we are just basically accepting pull requests, and that's it. So this is how it goes, and this is why I believe that decentralization with persistent identifiers will go the same way. As soon as it will be consumed in 2 European countries, after it will be in United States, probably Harvard and Stanford, so all other major players will join, and after it will be like standard way to release persistent identifiers.
Right. So for Lars and Jonas, if they want to introduce dPIDs into Uppsala University, they should introduce that not on the basis that it's, let's say, decentralized, because that's going to scare everybody.
Yes.
But if they introduce it as this is something that you can use to better control your data and have more efficient use of your data, we'll give you these 10 levers so that you can manipulate it. We won't talk about control. We'll just say you have the power over it or something like that. And
Yeah.
we don't have to tell them that this will have a life of its own eventually.
Absolutely. So it's you know, it's really scaring people that all control is going away.
Yeah, so we should show that they will not lose this control, and yeah, and how should influence on the way how it should be introduced.
Yeah. Sorry if I could, Andre. Sorry, we should introduce it as a data management system.
Yeah. Of new generation data management system. That's correct.
Yeah, a more powerful, more inclusive, more comprehensive,
and multilingual. This is like key feature, because I see at the moment I see the power of this decentralized ID in taking care about all use cases related to multilinguality. You can get under the same identifier, you can get keywords translated in all languages, meaning the same thing.
Yeah, so some of you know, for example, that we have some project with UNESCO on data policy for open science, and then we want to translate this into having data tools in order to collect that data and address disasters, whatever. But what we know for sure is that anybody within 100 kilometers or 1,000 kilometers of a UN organization, they want control. That we know. So the only way, but they cannot solve this problem of disparate data. You know, if you have an earthquake and you have this enormous amount of disparate data, you can't solve this in a central control room. you have to have some kind of decentralization. But we can't tell them, we cannot tell UNESCO or WHO or UNDRR or something, you can't control this. We can't tell them because they'll never talk to you again. Yeah. And I think it's the same thing for Uppsala University or for Leuven University, any other university. These
So this
research
raises,
managers, they're managers, they want to control. Sorry, okay, sorry.
Yeah, excuse me for interrupting. So this does raise a question. I mean, we do use the moniker dPIDs for the centralized processing and identifiers. If the decentralized part is that scary, and for me, it's empowering, right? Because if you understand how current PIDs are issued, there's even more loss of control, right? So actually, decentralization in this context provides control back to the PID mentors, right? So, but I do agree that it's a scary word for some contexts, for some people. Another alternative is to call those DAG PIDs. So dPIDs, the D in there would stand for DAG, which also would, you know, be correct technologically, and also it is something that the Software Heritage Foundation has been using, right? So they issue their own DAG-based PIDs. What we introduce is a networking layer on top of it. So that's a possibility. For me personally, though, I think I'm still in favor of keeping the D and dPIDs as decentralized because it also fits into its sister concept, which is the DID, the decentralized identifier. But I do agree that it's important to frame what is meant by that as a way to return institutional sovereignty, data, control over the PIDs, and all of these things, right?
Lars, what do you want to say?
Yeah, I just want to. It's exactly great stated, Christopher. This is kind of exactly what I wanted to say. Is that the D in the central PIDs actually is empowering and giving more control back to the universities or institutions that work. And to stress that by using this decentralized technology, you're giving back the control again to the research producing institutions. And I think that is something that is a very strong selling point, that they actually gain back control of the entire identifier process, which is very important.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with you. I think that should be a major selling point in the statement of benefit as well, is the ability to gain control over your institution's IDs.
One thing to consider here is that there may not be a current trust problem. So with the DOI registry, for example, like if there isn't a major problem in trust, then that could be until there's a major problem in trust, I don't see that being a major selling point.
Now,
Jonas, yeah.
Yes, I do have just a small addition to what Chris and Lars said, and it's, I mean, the decentralized thing is that we are taking away the centralized part, as in we're not giving all the power to one publisher or one server. So in that sense, we can just say that it is not sponsored by any one site or any one actor. And I think that could sell it, perhaps.
Well,
Yeah.
Jonas, just to.
Sorry.
But yeah, I want to push you on that just for a second, because a company that produces data does want to have that absolute sovereignty over its data, or a government wants to have the absolute control over the data.
Yes, over the
So
data.
how do we solve that here?
This is about finding the data or keeping track of it. It's not about not being able to contain your data yourself. You will have sovereignty of your own data, and people finding it doesn't necessarily mean that they can access it openly. They might have to do some really long applications and some other stuff in order to get access to it, but they can find it, and that is the point.
No. Just one more thing, I'll try to stop, but I think the word we can now try to substitute the word governance for control. So that if we can demonstrate that you have data governance, which is more complex than just control, then I think that we're in a good place. Thank you.
There is a very good point from Eric that he asks about how much context has to be laid out to explain the idea of taking the control back. It's really a good question.
Yeah, it goes to some of what Sina was saying around certain people who are very deep into PID infrastructure understand limitations. But as a whole, DOI has done a lot of good for the world over the course of its time in service. So I've had to go down these paths explaining it a couple times, and generally it's not received well. It's you have to lay out so much background and context. Maybe I just haven't figured out the right way to phrase that, the right way to put it. But communicating that idea is really challenging.
Yes, for me it's also very, very challenging. And I wanted also to ask Slava if he's happy to write something down in our ideation to have again the statement of benefits.
Yeah, I can try to figure out something.
Yeah, because I also make now a small note about what you have said. So, because the technology is in its technical superiority is standing on the advantages of decentralization, distributed ledgers, etc., to have the data management system of the new generation, as you said. What do you think? Can we say something like this in our statement of benefits?
I think the first question that like policy-driven people in Europe will ask you, it's not sustainable because there is not responsible party. No, I'm not kidding. This
No,
is
you're
like
right. I've been asked that question a dozen times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So and sustainability is like first thing in any European project or every European context.
Can you tell us just a few words about how exactly it is maintained? So on which we should argue on.
But then, if I could say, Slava, that's why we need to couple this with governance.
I agree completely. And this is why first complaint will be what will happen if you lose your access. So what will happen to your data? So let's say you're just losing your private key for some reason. It's been destroyed. How to restore it back?
So then there could be room there for institutional governance or institutional control.
But I mean, every time when I'm trying to introduce decentralized technology, it's like first question, what is going to happen if I lose my private key? Someone of you have answer on this?
It means it depends from who is holding a backup and who is holding a private key infrastructure, right?
Right, but there is no responsible party to do that.
The answer that the one that I'm leaning towards at the moment is the idea of key management by institutional IT. I don't
Okay.
know if that
So on
answers the question.
so you mean on it will be on their shoulders, right?
Probably.
So that means also, so if you want them to maintain this, it should be really proved infrastructure, like something like digital wallet that will allow to do that.
Mhm.
And it will be like third question, do you have this in place? And if not, it's just experimental technology. It's not mature enough.
Sina, would you be able to talk about some of the way that we're handling this?
I already told you. So all this stuff is really like from the future. So probably 5 years ahead or something. And the only way to continue is just to get it coupled with some well-known technology proved, and people will see the value in getting new technology, like working together.
So in the context of dPID, the current implementation, there's it doesn't actually matter who performs the transaction to publish the content. You know, you could sign it to show your provenance, but a third party could also publish it. So it's not like there's a strict access control in place for that. There could be, well, okay, so but then to actually update the content, if you lost your private key for the in our implementation, the ceramic stream, for example, you would be no longer able to update. However, we could create a kind of a specification in the protocol to allow you to say, hey, this key has been rotated, and there is some support for that. And it's up to the client to determine whether they will follow that announcement that the key was rotated. So there's a there's a potential way for you to, if you lose a key, for example, and you're not able to update a research object, there could be a specification in the protocol that allows you to specify, hey, we've rotated this key.
So it's a more, so it's a more, sorry, please go ahead.
I think it sounds very good, and this is kind of answer I want to hear. But is it something that implemented, or there is it already on roadmap, or what is current status?
So on the ceramic side, they do have support for key rotation in the event of a compromised key. Additionally, stuff that we could put on the roadmap is related to multi-party computation, MPC. So this is a new type of way of interacting with decentralized networks that it basically never exposes the private key to even the end user. And so it's it's also a way where you can get a network of machines to split up the key on your behalf and then put it together using so some zero knowledge like encryption solutions or homomorphic encryption. So basically you can get high level of security and then a high degree of redundancy in the event that you forget your private key. So multi-party compute could be considered a very good solution for enterprise and institutional adoption. But a lot of this tech is still being kind of like worked out, but there are examples of it working. So there's like different like kind of hosted providers for this multi-party compute that allow you to do stuff like do key rotation in the event of a compromised account.
So basically what you're describing, and now we're coming back to our centralized solution going in the centralized way. You're describing like federation, like ORCID, coupled with some backend that allows to manage private keys. Is it correct?
I'd have to look more into like the specifics of the different implementations, but I believe the idea would be to make it so that there could be like you could opt in to be a operator in the network, and it doesn't necessarily have to be like this federated whitelist of nodes that actually manage the keys, and we can employ encryption to guarantee that the keys are kept private until authorized to be used. But I'd have to look more into it.
Okay.
Jonas?
Yeah, forgive me if I'm slow. I'm a biologist, but the keys are for updating or constructing a dPID. Is that right?
So
Yes.
in our well, okay, so there's a couple different ways you could implement a dPID. In the example that we've created, there's actually a smart contract that increments the identifier, and you can use it to point to a ceramic stream. And then, so the stream itself is what's generated using a private key, the stream ID. And so it would be impossible for, a third party to be able to update that stream without your private key, for example. But then anybody could actually issue a request to effectively like pin a stream and, identify it by it, on the smart contract. So there's like, I think it's tunable. There's different levels of, ability that you can have that require you to have your private key available.
Okay, because from a researcher's standpoint, I think just doing this once and getting rid of your data, having it published, you just want it to be findable. If you want to use it again, you will probably just download it from the repository where it's located after you have published it. I don't see how you could lose your key and make that impossible. It seems like it's a much easier problem, unless I misunderstood something.
I mean, forgotten passwords are like it always comes up. So,
yeah, but you don't need a password to fetch your data from
Correct.
that's
NCBI
correct.
or
Yeah,
something.
so there's different. Yeah, so in terms of data access, losing your key, you wouldn't have necessarily a loss of data access, for example, because all of it is open. What you could potentially have is the loss of the ability to update the original research object that you published, for example.
Yeah, but you shouldn't do that anyway because you're done with that project.
Yeah, well, we could consider. Oh, okay, so in the context of the current, state of like scientific publishing, yes, that would be true because these, papers tend to be static. But I could see a future where like these research objects are dynamic and accrue, updates as well as signals of quality and validation over time.
Yeah, sure. I can see that.
So that could be potentially important, but then, I'm just looking more into like this. If you accrue reputation, for example, to a research object, and then that key is compromised and somebody then abuses the, key to publish, false data, that could be an issue. And then also losing the key and no longer being able to make updates, you would want to be able to handle that path as well.
But let's say if the key is lost, it should be something like it automatically creates a tombstone. Francis? We cannot hear you. You are muted.
Sorry. I just want to say to Flav and Simon, be careful here, huh? The perfect is the enemy of the good. And I can imagine people ask these questions. They usually do when they're being nervous or worried about something. But maybe the standard is not the perfect future, but the standard that we have now is better than that. Sorry, I would do it.
Well, now let me please.
Okay,
Yeah.
just one extra comment about that.
Yes.
So what is going to happen to private keys if we are talking about hundreds, thousands of them or millions? So it requires really like key management system or some digital wallet. And I don't see that it's present currently. So how we're going to handle this? I can easily assign, I think, up to million decentralized identifiers to concepts in controller category already.
Yeah, okay, so what's the question specifically here? Sorry.
So specific, my specific question. So I will get, let's say, 1 million private keys, right?
Mhm.
And every key will be associated to specific concept in my controller category.
Sure.
So I want to keep them in secure place. So I don't want someone else to get access. And I want to keep this association that this key is basically for this identifier. How and where should I store it to make it manageable?
Yeah. So what you're looking for is a key management, a secure
Right.
key management system.
Yes.
And I think based on the technology available today, a multi-party computation key management system is likely the most secure and resilient approach. That basically has the least amount of single points of failure while still maintaining a high degree of security. So I think we'll see more projects that use multi-party computation for key management. And if you want to see some examples, I'll actually put together a few. So there's one called Crayon with a K. So they have like a API-based solution that's actually fairly straightforward to integrate. There's also one called Web3 Auth MPC. That's using it. You can take a look at their docs. So that it's being marketed as an enterprise grade key management solution, and I think that's probably where we're headed. And you can take a look at the pros and cons, but I'll see if I can maybe paste in a few links here.
So it's called Crayon with K.
Correct. Yeah, there's one that's called Crayon with a K. They offer one. There's also this Web3 Auth. I'm just going to paste a few.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Also, Slava, just as a question for my own personal curiosity, if you own 1 million keys representing concepts in a scaled decentralized network, does that mean that you own the concept of concepts?
This is good philosophical question because all concept in my case created by artificial intelligence. And what actually it does, it's kind of amazing because if people asking to create ontology on specific topic, I'm using Wikipedia as entrance point. So there is AI that does processing of all texts, and after it's recognizing concepts and relationships between concepts, and it's creating graph, and it's translating this graph in a context, and after it's populating complete ontology. So it's fully generated by AI, and I don't know who is owner. This is why I want something like dPID or DID, but not DIs, obviously. And also a question about license,
Yeah, of course, of course.
Yes.
Ultimately, this goes down a governance rabbit hole.
Yeah, just to return to our task now, in which, let's say, in which form do we want to see our benefit statement? It should be the list of the bullet points, or it should be the paragraphs of text. What do you think?
Or should it be PowerPoint slides?
Yeah, or something like that.
Well,
Because
this thing
yeah.
kind of goes to Jonas and Lars. Given your timelines, you're presenting 2 weeks from now, and one of those 2 weeks is a national holiday where nothing's going to get done. What is the most useful thing we can do to help you?
images, I would say.
Images.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah, for sure.
Graphics
And I don't know how about Jonas, but I plan to work at least some of that time. So
Yeah, I will work as well.
yeah, so that we'll have some time, but yeah, images would definitely help.
Okay, some nice graphics to show this as an organizational research data management solution.
Yeah, that would
Okay.
be excellent.
Okay, well, we have the
Okay.
map to coordinate on, so that's probably the right place for us to work asynchronously. I'll start thinking about what graphics look like for this and how much we can repurpose from existing familiar frameworks, because ultimately there's a lot of stuff around research data management that this can just tie into.
Yeah.
Should there be a statement of the problem or problematic that's being addressed? And should there be a value proposition?
Well, about the statement about the problem, I don't think so. That's just my opinion. And the second one, I think it should be. What do you think, the others?
I
Yeah.
I agree with you. The problem is good, but the problem gets tricky. I've found more success tying it into policy statements for any given institution or nation, whatever it actually is. Given that the problem itself is the reputation of the person receiving whatever presentation is being given, not reputation, but the incentives of said person. So that's how I've approached it, but there is a case to actually put the problem up front. If the problem is kind of administrative burden on researchers or tying a research data management department into financing for institutions, things along those lines.
But could the problem be stated in terms of governance, in terms of transparency, in terms of provenance, in terms of utility?
So whenever you say governance in this context, what exactly do you mean? Would you mind detailing it a little bit more?
Yeah, I generally think of three things in terms of governance. I would think of policy, regulation, and ethics.
Okay.
Sorry to respond that way. And I think that or we also been using the term control here. But at the end of the day, maybe this is not governance, but at the end of the day, I think the highest value lies in utility, or the greater the utility, the greater the value. So we have to demonstrate a greater utility, and then people will want to have control over that use, the utility.
Okay. Okay. Francis, could the two of us collaborate over the next few days on a rough outline for the story behind this? So I think some of these points are a good way to go. Starting with the problem, talking about the solution, and then explaining ownership and governance over the solution.
I'm happy to run interference. I'm not the best, but I don't understand any of this. But I'm happy to run interference with you. We might also think that, where is this going to be presented? I'm so sorry, I missed that. I think it's going to be presented in 2 weeks. Is this for Denver or something like that? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's
so the 2 weeks presentation that me and Jonas is holding is for Uppsala University, in order for them to sort of become our hope is that they will become adopters of this technology and be a good use case for us to use as adopters.
If your presentation is more in the format of a story, then in the format of a scientific, look at my new shiny object thing, it might be more convincing, because it's a rhetorical problem. It's much more a rhetorical problem than a didactic problem, I would say. Because if you understand your method and what you want to achieve, then your problem is a rhetorical problem.
Good point.
Yeah. So now we just half an hour over, and so are you okay with staying 10 minutes more, or it is time to have a conclusion?
I don't know that I could say for conclusion of some of these points, but this has been such an incredible discussion. I'm getting pings on the side to join another call, but thank you all. I had a lot of fun.
It's been super interesting.
Just a couple of seconds, please, because I wanted to ask all of you for the, let's say, for the assistance on writing the conference paper on TDI 2024, because I still had to make a clarification about the funding of the conference from a side of Elettra, and so I need an assistance. I don't know if I would be able to dedicate a bit of time on it next days on TDI 2024, this one.
Okay, we can take a look at it.
Yes, and also I think we could use just the already written conference paper as the templates. It's they are all pretty well.
Yeah, we can absolutely help. I gotta jump off to my next call. Thank you all.
Thank you,
Thank you.
and see you in next 2 weeks. Next biweekly
For
Tuesdays.
sure.
Yeah. Thank
That
you.
will be great.
Thank you again.
See you.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you. See you around.
Bye.
See you around.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.